Good evening again. Please come to order. This is the regular council meeting of the City of Bel Air Beach for January 6th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of the council, Happy New Year to everyone. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Robin Aki.
Here.
Councilmember Marv Beam. Councilmember Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Shirley.
Here.
Councilmember Rita Swope.
Here.
Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Manzo.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
And City Attorney Fred Riley.
Here.
Okay, thank you. The first thing that we have is the approval of the agenda, and there was a written request. We're supposed to have a monthly Parks Board update, so I'm going to ask that if maybe we could add that. I saw Rick Schock here, and I saw Rudy Davis. I think, is Mr. Davis gone? Is there anybody here from the planning board? Because they did meet. I wanted to see if anybody wanted to meet or give a presentation. Mr. Schock, do you want to do the finance? No, you're on finance. Do you want to do the finance, an update for us for finance?
Quickly, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, can
Yes.
we pull item 5
Yes.
consideration?
And I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Reeves and I had a discussion on that, and we came to that conclusion, okay? We think that that would be better handled privately. So we have an amendment here to, well, actually, somebody has to make this amendment. I can't do this. But what we're looking at is adding a Parks Board report, adding a Finance Board report, and removing item 5 to our amended agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that we have an amended agenda. We'll put Parks Board meeting in right after citizen comments. How's that? Or actually, right after Sheriff's Department. So you'll be number 3.5. How's that? Okay, next comes the citizen comments, and I think most everyone, I'm sorry? Yes, finance will be there also, yes. Next comes the citizen comments, and I think most everybody was here for the discussion. I just will remind everyone there is what we were referring to, this whole code of conduct thing. It's up here. If anybody has any questions or if they're going to speak, it's out there. Take a look at it, make sure that you understand it, and if you come up here, we ask that everybody work with us and abide by it. We'll have a good meeting. So our hand go up, someone wants to speak, so please come up.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. My name is Fritz Will. I live on 905 Harbor Drive. I was here last month because I sent an email to the mayor. I have not received a response. And the mayor told me that in the future he's not going to accept any emails, just letters, or I can call the front desk, I guess.
You call me directly.
Yes. So I sent a letter on December 3rd, and I still have not received an answer.
And I've not seen your letter.
Well, it's addressed to Mayor Joseph Manzo at 444 Causeway Boulevard in Bel Air Beach. So I don't know what the problem is. I know that respect has to be earned, but a little courtesy would be nice, especially from a public servant. So I'm very disappointed, to let you know, and I don't know what else to do in order to get some response.
Why don't you hand me the letter, because apparently I haven't received it. And I will do this, let me tell you this, I did go back after we spoke last time, and council, I have your permission to speak, because we don't normally get back and forth with people, but Mr. Will was here last time, and I did research his issue. I went back through my emails, and my apology, I did have your email, but you sent a second email telling me that the problem was solved. That's why I didn't answer you. So obviously I'm mistaken. If you have a letter for me, please give it to me, and I will be in touch with you immediately. I did not receive your December 5th letter. So.
Just for the benefit of the entire council, what is the subject of, what is the issue? I mean, I'm sitting here and
Well, thank you for asking. The subject is the flooding of 9th Street, and I wanted to know what is being done. In the meantime, I talked to Mr. Reeves. He's working on the issue, but I sure would like to know when this problem will be solved, because I live on 905 Harbor Drive. All the water runs off onto my driveway, and every time we have a major flood, I can't take my car out of the garage because it's all salt water, and I don't appreciate that. So I still would like to have an answer one of these days when this issue will be solved, the flooding of 9th Street.
Mr. Fritz, you actually are in the right spot with the city manager. This is actually something he will do, but however, we have to give him the funds to do it. So I'm not going to give you an answer tonight because I don't have an answer for you.
Fine.
This is a long-term capital project, and I know we've spoken a little bit about 9th Street. This is a matter for this council, and it's okay. We're going to bring this up on our next work session, and we will figure out where 9th Street fits in the priority, either the city manager or myself. It's really the city manager who should get back to you, but I'll be more than happy to get back to you. I know you've tried to get me. My mistake, I read your second email, and your second email said you had received a response from the city manager, so that's why I didn't respond. I did get your emails, I didn't get your letter. So now I've got your letter, you'll get an answer. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Give me 1 month to get you that answer. I'll try and do it quicker though, okay?
Okay, great, thank you.
Citizens, anything else? Mr. Hanzik.
John Hanzik, 103 22nd Street. Mr. Mayor, council members, Happy New Year. I'm going to bring up an old topic because I had not heard any feedback on my original comments. Last year, the city did 2 speed surveys on random streets in the city of Bel Air Beach. Results were presented to council. Back then, I believe citizens and some council members felt that there was an issue, and that's what prompted the 2 speed surveys. We also had a report from a city of Texas, much larger than Bel Air Beach. It was done in 1990, and then there was an update with that gave us the results of the surveys done here, and strangely, for whatever unexplained reason, even to right now, the results of 22nd Street were mysteriously not in that report. I live on 22nd Street. For 3 consecutive months after those surveys, I stood here and asked what the city was going to be doing about it. I presented 3 recommendations for 3 consecutive months. Not hearing anything, I decided to wait and see. And I have attended every meeting throughout 2019. And as of December's meeting, I or any other citizen have not received any information. And we were told if the information wasn't available at the time of the council meeting, it would be brought up at a subsequent meeting. So I brought it up 3 times with the recommendations. So there's 2 months plus the 3 that I did not get up here and speak on. That's 5 months. So I guess, if I may, do I present those recommendations again and wait for a response? Or does anybody recall what my recommendations were? I saw a problem, I brought you some solutions.
We're not supposed to have the back and forth. So again, council, do you want to suspend our rules here and answer back? Or this city manager, I know, Mr. Reeves, we had talked about doing a further study. We're going to consult an expert, I remember. But I think we kind of dropped this whole speeding issue for a while, and I don't know why we have. So I guess we're going to get back into
We
it.
did do speed surveys,
Right.
and they did not meet the threshold for doing anything.
Remember that, yeah.
And, you know, we can do more if that's what the council, I mean, wants me to do, I can have more done, but the
thought-
surveys that were taken did not meet the threshold to do anything.
I remember those. Yeah, that was the sheriff's surveys.
Yes,
But there was, I think, and maybe I'm confusing this, and I hope I'm not, but I think it was with the speeding. I thought you mentioned you had a consultant or someone that you knew, or someone that you were going to consult with. I think it came up at a work session, that you said you had a person that you could, because we were
well,
signage and, you know, and
If-
lights and all this kind of stuff, and you said you had a person that you could reach out to, because we do have, Mr. Hansick has an issue here. I understand that it doesn't hit the, 85% of the cars go the right speed. It's those 15% that he has the problem with, and it's, that's the way it is with everything. It's the 15% that are causing the problems. The 85% go along that road just fine. I don't speed on that road, but 15 that do, drive him crazy, and it's a danger. It's not just him, it's a danger to the citizens. I mean, we've seen it, we know it.
well, the city would, if you want an outside consultant, we would have to hire an outside consultant. But when it was left, what I understood, we talked about putting blinking signs up, we did 2 or 3 different presentations, and we had the sheriff's stuff, and they would do the same thing from a speed standpoint. So, it's really up to the council if you want me to.
I don't think we ever brought it as a council to finality.
I think the one obstacle we had was everyone had ideas of solutions, but none of us really are traffic experts, so I don't know that our solutions would satisfy all the residents, because there are residents here that didn't want speed bumps. There was a lot of lashback. I think Steve Marsh wants to talk about this same issue, if I'm not mistaken, is that right? So would it make sense to hear what another resident has to say about the speeding that lives over there as well?
We won't resolve it tonight, but I want to hear from the residents. But Mr. Hansick, it seems like we're going to have a work session this month. Yeah, we'll get you in a second, Steve. I know you're always at these things. I mean, maybe you can come back and help. The problem is, I remember going around and around for 40-plus minutes during a council session, and we had a lot of, like Jody said, we had a lot of great ideas, but we didn't authorize any of them. So I think as a council, we have to kind of decide which way to go with the city manager's input, with whatever experts we have. I mean, we haven't really brought this issue to a close.
I just looked through my
Yeah.
notes that I keep at every meeting, and we had a discussion about it in August. So, we talked about flashing signs, cost of signs, removal, putting different signs up. We talked about speed tables, we talked about speed bumps.
Long story short, if I can interrupt, there's a lot of solutions out there, but the reality of it is no one wants them in their neighborhood. That's basically what it boils down to. And I think possibly a new idea that we've not considered is going to be presented tonight, and something we can further discuss in the next work session. But I'm just being honest with you. That's what I found out, is that people just didn't want, they wanted something to protect the children, but they don't want a sign. They want people to slow down, but they don't want speed humps. There's just, no matter what, you can't make everybody happy. And so it sort of got tabled. And thank you for calling it back to our attention, and hopefully we'll have something.
Patty, so that we don't forget, would you please put this on the agenda for the next work session?
Can I make a comment? We had a lengthy discussion about traffic calming. The issue here is, we still don't have a traffic calming policy or directive on how we address this thing. It sets thresholds, it tells you how you do it, it tells you what the thresholds are, what the residents want, and how to go about it. We've never gotten that far as to coming up with a decisive policy. In the interim, we addressed a couple issues. One was directed patrols. We had questions about the certification of our officers with radar, and then there are directed patrols with radar. I have a photograph of a sheriff's car sitting in the median directly in front of your house, and I will be happy to provide that to you. And I stopped and I said, hey, congratulations, and we're obviously making some progress in this thing, and I said, hey, what are you finding? What are you seeing? And the guy just shook his head and went like this, nothing. So when the sheriff gives his report this evening, I'm going to ask him, what have they found with respect to these directed patrols and these radar? I don't know how many times I've come out of 22nd Street in Donato, and there's an officer sitting down there looking. How many times I hit Bayshore, and there's an officer sitting either there or there. They're out there, they're looking. So again, we need to ask this question and/or follow up with a policy for, hey, if that's what we want, or that's what the residents want, here's how you go about doing it.
I'm surprised that a deputy was literally sitting in a meeting in front of my house, given that I do my woodworking in the driveway.
Your car is in the photograph. In your driveway.
Maybe I was working in the backyard. But I'm not suggesting that the council try to find money. The budget's already been approved, okay? And I'm not an advocate of speed bumps or these other things that they're talking about. Most of what I suggested wouldn't cost us a lot of money. You know, about the certification of the deputies assigned to the city. Asking the sheriff or the deputies, I don't know how you go about doing that, is cut this latitude in half. And to your comment, sir, perhaps I need to document days of the week and specific times that I see residents using 22nd as a speedway. My biggest concern, more than anything, is the residents, and a lot of them come from Bel Air out on the States, that walk down the street to go to the beach and back home again. That's my biggest concern. I don't want to see or have to grab my phone and call 911 or go out there and play CERT team member. Thank you.
Thanks.
May I comment on this?
Sure.
We talked about it extensively, and I suggested a drop the speed limit. And if the latitude is dropped down, a 10 mile and over ticket will make an impact on your license.
What I'd like to do is this. Let's move this, we have this, we're gonna put this at the next, and by the way, before I forget, okay? 9th Street flooding also, second item. We're gonna address these issues. That'll be our next work session, which will probably be somewhere around the middle of the month. So I don't want to, we got off like into a 45-minute discussion on speeding the one night, and I think there are some great ideas. Mr. Hanzik, I remember your suggestions, and I know they were working on getting everyone certified, but I don't think there's also been some transfers in and out on the sheriff's department, so sometimes you have everybody certified, then somebody moves to a different area, now you have to get a new person certified. But I think almost everybody was certified, so that part was good, we were working on that. I remember seeing that photo that Vice Mayor Gunn talked about, but the thing is this, I live across the street from the 6th Street easement, and I see sometimes the sheriffs are out there at nighttime. The problem is, like, you could see them from a half a mile away. They got a big car and it's reflective and you don't speed. So I don't, if they're sitting in front of your house, if anybody was going to speed, I mean, they see them there, So I don't know what the solution is, and maybe our sheriffs can help us out on that. Is there a way they can kind of, go undercover a little bit over here? Because when you see that big cruiser, you'd have to be a fool to speed. I bet nobody sped that morning, but they're not always there, and, we can't always keep them there. So there's a few solutions. I do agree with Dave Gaddis, though, yeah, we'll put the speed hump there, but nobody wants it in front of their house, and nobody wants that blinking sign in front of their house either. So, I think something like this, and you're very vocal about this, and it's much appreciated. And I don't want to say not all the residents want it, because I'd like to hear from the residents. And maybe if we have to have a little town hall meeting with the 22nd Street residents and invite everyone to come and speak, I'm fine with that. Okay, I want to hear what everyone has to say, because maybe somebody doesn't care. Maybe they won't put that sign in front of their house. So. Mr. Marsh,
My turn?
it is your
Awesome,
turn.
thank you.
Be good now.
First of all, I want to say, I'm Steve Marsh, 2250 Donato Drive, Bel Air Beach. I want to say thank you to all of you for tonight, working the problems out, getting along, let's move forward with the city's business. All right, I wasn't really going to talk about speeding tonight, but since it was brought up, Marv, your comment for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. If you do your homework, that is the first step to tables. So what cities do is they reduce the speed limit, now they catch you speeding, now they have the right to put in speed tables, which is not going to work. Number one, you're going to reduce your property value, which isn't really the issue, but most of the people that live on the island are, I'm like I think one of the youngest people out there, I hope, or maybe I think I'm young, but, right? And speed tables will slow down emergency vehicles by minutes to get across it. You try and get a big fire truck across a tabletop, it takes a while. So, number two, if I'm out and I'm looking for people speeding, you can bet your butt I see people speeding, but I have zero proof. If I want to think somebody's speeding, guess what? They're speeding. So we've had 2 tests done already with 0 evidence of speeding. I've been driving through, I set my cruise control at 19 miles an hour and had people come out and yell at me. So I do it purposely for people to come out. I set it, I take a picture of it, and I drive. So I think until we can get true evidence of speeding, let's keep talking about it. But the real reason I'm here is to talk about a totally different subject, which might help this subject. So, you know, Bel Air Beach is an amazing city. It's sitting in the right spot. It's in the right county. It's visible. It has money. We need to use our city to market our city for new high technology. And that's what I've been working on. And the reason I'm here today is to ask you to put me on the agenda for the work session, next work session, to present some ideas that I have. So we can continue to find new technologies for our cities. And once we get the first 4 technologies in here, we'll be known as a test bed for new technologies for cities. We're a small city, so the cost of covering our city is inexpensive. It's visible when people come and see it. They can see the install. We can share what data we agree to share with them and help them sell to other cities while we get it for free or half cost for our city. So that's what I've been working on. So if I can get on the schedule for next work session, I'd like to present some new technologies and what I've come up with.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Council, is that something that we'd like to put on the agenda?
I'm good with that.
Sam nods yes.
Yes.
Anybody opposed?
Very good idea.
Patty, we have 3 items. We might need 2 work sessions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. And thanks for your input tonight. Any other citizens like to comment? Yes, sir. Now your time is up.
It's Brad Glover, 126 9th Street. So I actually live on 9th Street. The flooding is horrendous, as I know you guys understand. So I'm here to talk about the flooding. And you know, as you guys are thinking about capital projects and you're trying to prioritize streets, I've lived here now 9 years. I have 2 young kids, and at the end of the day, we can't even walk out on a sunny day down the street to the park, which you guys are thinking about putting improvements to actually use the park because our street's flooded, because it's high tide. So, you know, I understand that budgets are set and how things work, but at the end of the day, I think a prioritization of 9th Street flooding would be really beneficial for this town. The other thing is, you know, you guys are looking at putting improvements into this park of about $200,000 I read at our last meeting. However, again, I have 2 young kids. We think the park is great. I think using the funds to make the park better is really not a good use of capital from the standpoint of the fact that we have flooding in our street. And not only that, when cars go down our street and it's a nice sunny day at noon and it's high tide, the water comes all the way up into my garage almost. And so increased traffic on 9th Street until you fix the problem with capital improvements to the park is probably not a great idea. The other thing is there's also coyotes in the park. We've actually in the last month, I've seen 6 coyotes in this park. I literally live right at the end of the cul-de-sac here. So just thinking about improvements to the park before you actually address the issue of flooding is probably not the best use of capital or the best use of everybody's time. So that's what I wanted to say. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Reeves, as he's talking about 9th Street, I'm reminded of a call that I got months ago from someone at the county, and I think you and I spoke about that. Well, didn't they come out to look at something on, was it 9th Street?
No, it was
Different street?
18th.
18th, okay. I knew I got a call from.
Yeah, we put a check valve in there, and we've got some issues with it.
On 9th Street?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
And the vendor came out, actually the president of the company came from Sweden, and the engineer is due to come back here this month. This was just between our last council meeting and Christmas he was out. Because we put the valves in and then we've had a little leakage, but they're the larger valves. I think the one on 9th is 24 inches, and that's the ones we've had problems with. We haven't had problems with any of the other ones, or the 18s or the 15s, but we've taken camera photos and things of that nature, video, and we've shared that with the vendor, and they're trying to work that problem out. All that will stop, though, is the high tide.
Sunny day flooding.
That's what will stop. And that's mainly what the check valves are for, is to try to prevent that sunny day flooding.
Was that one installed by us, or?
Yes.
We did, okay.
Yeah, we installed it ourselves, the Public Works Department did it, and we've done one on 12th. We had somebody do one on 13th. Right? I think that's right, Rick. And we've done one on, let's see, Belle Isle at the intersection, there's one, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Now, there are valves, and that has improved that situation, but they're smaller valves.
Is the flooding better with the check valve on 9th Street, or is it about the same?
It's not as much water as it was when it's really a high tide, but it is leaking, and we know that. And the same is happening on 13th. There's a leakage problem.
Same size valve?
Yeah, same size.
So the valve.
But the one on 12th, no problem. So it's the 24-inch valve that they were taking it back. The president of the company from Sweden was here with the representative, and the engineer is actually going to come back and visit us, and hopefully they've got a solution to what the problem is, because they do some testing on the valves before they ship them out, and it's very strange that it's only that size.
So there's been no thought of just replacing it with multiple smaller valves?
Well, it's the size of the pipe.
Right.
Yeah.
It has to fit.
Can I just ask, Frank, I think you said you've not seen a difference at all, is that correct? Since the check valves were put in, you're over there shaking your head. Did I, yeah, no, okay, thank you.
Is it the same issue as on 8th Street with the size of the pipe?
No, the one that's on, the water that's coming on 8th Street is because of 7th Street. There's a cross pipe in the stormwater, and when it gets into high tide, it ends up, which it's just the flow of the water, unfortunately, but it comes up there at the corner of 7th and Harbor and pushes in the pipe that goes between 7th and 8th Street, and then pushes the water into the 8th Street inlets. So,
Don't we have 7th on the menu for this year?
yeah, that's
You know
something
that,
we'll
right?
move.
Right after they finish the county thing? That was our plan?
Yeah, yeah, well, we're going to be asking the engineers actually this month to give us a price on the design for it, and then design permitting services.
I'm not sure if everybody knows, but we're throwing around these terms here. I didn't know what they were last year at this time. Rainy day, sunny day check valves, okay? What's happening here, what I'm hearing is, this is tidal flooding. It has nothing to do with a hurricane or anything like that, and that's within our control. If these check valves that the city manager started putting in, actually some of our employees started putting in last year, proved to be very effective on certain streets. So apparently we've got bad valves here, so we're gonna figure out what the story is. But that'll help you on a sunny day. this doesn't address what happens if there's a hurricane. We have limited powers when it comes to that. We all live on an island, so no one should expect that this is going to cure, that you're going to be, stay home in the next Cat 4. Don't. It's not going to work. But you shouldn't be flooding on a day like, today or something, so it shouldn't be happening. So. Okay. Any other citizen comments? Okay, I'm going to close citizen comments then. We're going to go to the consent agenda, which is approval of the December 2nd City Council. I'm sorry, Sheriff, I skipped right over you. I'm sorry, I wrote over it. You didn't have anything that happened this month anyway. It's going to be a quick report.
That is true. It was pretty quiet in November. Happy New Year to you guys. Sergeant Tacey, I'm going to be doing the November stats for the Sheriff's Office. Page, you guys all have the email, the stats? Okay. Page 1, I want to point out that Part 1 crimes, both October and November, all were at 0. So this might be a good time to let everyone know, lock your cars. Lock your cars. There's been 2 good months. Burglaries are bound to happen here or there. If we can lock our cars, it helps a big part of our problem. Page 2, there's 2 arrests in the city. Both were misdemeanor. One was a driving under influence. He was a non-resident of Bel Air Beach. And the other one was a possession of paraphernalia, which was also a non-resident of Bel Air Beach. Page 3, there were 748 events in the city, 841 units responding to the city. I always like to point out the top portion of this little graph that you have underneath that. The majority of that is self-initiated activity. We could even go into the top 3, which were house checks, directed patrol, and traffic stops. You have 544 incidents that were self-initiated activity within the city of the 748. So deputies are staying busy, doing, I believe, what they're supposed to be doing. Accidents, 1 accident at Gulf Boulevard and 6th Street, and there were 116 citations given within the city. So there are 11 of those were parking citation, 23 were actual citations, and 82 were warnings. That is it for the stats. Questions?
Any questions from the citizens?
I have to ask, were the warnings for speeding?
The warnings could be for anything, and just to kind of touch on the speeding issue, I would say that discretion is one of our best tools, and to take that away from us is not a great idea, because we can meet mom on a bad day, and to say that she's driving her child to the ER, and because she's going 16 over, well, 15 is the minimum, well, now there's a memorandum that says 15 over, there's a citation. I don't agree with that. 116 stops in a month, they're doing something. And you're probably gonna find that the majority is the residents or workers throughout the day. So maybe setting up and making sure that the directed patrol, I didn't look at the directed patrols to make sure that they have been done. I have no doubt that they have been done at 116 citations. 116 citations.
Are we running more radar?
Yeah, I can tell you for sure, night shift is definitely running radar. There are day shift deputies who are certified who are running radar as well. So yes, without a doubt. Radar and laser, he's laser certified as well. But from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., if he were to sit on 22nd Street, I think he probably would fall asleep. So I'm joking, of course. But he's more useful on Gulf Boulevard and the Causeway.
So you think more emphasis running more radar might explain the uptick in the citations?
Possibly. And I know that this has been an issue. I think the Sheriff's Office knows it's been an issue out here. But the speed survey that came back didn't really show a true issue. So, and working out here now for 2 years, mostly night, I could sit and run radar, and especially our shift, you could sit on Gulf Boulevard and not see a car between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, maybe 3, 4 cars. So this is probably more of a day shift, and that's probably when you're seeing it, issue, and I could pass to them as well, just to make sure that they're addressing 22nd Avenue. And you're right, seeing a Tahoe down the street is a big deterrent. But if the Tahoe's there, they're not speeding. So that in itself is a corrective measure.
Yes, Sheriff, with 22nd Street, there's two issues. When you have a bunch of children, you know, during an off-season as we had over Christmas and are going to the beach, there's no place to hide on that street. We don't have any lines on either side, you know, designated for pedestrian traffic, and it gets a little scary out there. When an elderly person walking, and it's not necessarily the residents, it's the landscapers, it's UPS, it's all the others that come in and out of here. That's what you see. So there may be a resident from time to time, but it's really people that are out of the city, workers.
Sheriff, I have a question for you. Are we still continuing, last year it's always been a pet peeve of mine because I live across the street from it, but all the beach easements, particularly ones that we share with Bel Air Shore, you know, right around sundown, usually, yeah, you get a lot of people who don't live here, and it's not so much that I mind sharing the beach with them, it's what they do. We've seen them in people's backyard, or good neighbors across the street in Bel Air Shore. They're crawling by their swimming pools, they think it's the Holiday Inn, and it's not, and it's gonna lead to a bad relationship. So we've asked, you know, in the past, just kind of keep an eye on that area, and you did. Last year you did a great job, you kind of shooing everybody away. Is that continuing now?
That is
particularly the new visitors coming in?
Those stats would show up in Bel Air Shore stats,
Okay.
but yes, that is continuing.
Excellent, thank you.
One last thing is, you're giving us a great insight with a night perspective. Would it be possible for you to touch base with your daytime compadre and get feedback from the same perspective from days?
I can do that, for sure.
Yeah, that'd be great, because as Mr. Beam brings up, you know, it's a day issue, the traffic flowing through. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Great job. I want to keep the zeros going. I have a question for the city manager. When I read this, it's a good question, don't worry. When I read this, I was really, really proud of this, you know, that we have zero crime in our city. Have we considered maybe putting this information out on our website? I mean, this is, if you're looking to buy in Bel Air Beach or come to this city, there's not too many cities up and down this coast that could brag that they had zeros for the month. That's pretty darn good.
I have to look, but Patty, don't we put these up, statistics?
I don't put them up, so I'm, it would, if,
I know we used to.
yeah,
They're
if
very good,
Kyle's
the
not
agendas,
doing
but,
it.
I mean,
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
saying.
I mean, we used to put the statistics up, and maybe when we had, which we still do, the ADA issues, to put all that stuff down, so,
Maybe.
we may be able to convert them. And, you know, we can take it 2 or 3 months and put something in the, you know, do every other month, city news, put something in there.
I mean, this is something to be proud of as a city. I mean, and it's everything. It's the excellent sheriff's patrol. It's also, you know, we're always keeping an eye on the neighborhood, and I think a lot of people in the city know who their neighbors are, and if they see something that's wrong, they say something, and it helps you out tremendously. I know that. Great job. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And actually, I jumped to consent, and that was wrong. Next 3.5 is the Parks Board and the Finance Committee. Quick updates over here. So, Mr. Schock and Ms. Vanscoy.
Good evening, Rick Schock, 115 13th Street, Bel Air Beach. I just want to let you know that the first meeting of the Resident Financial Advisory Committee took place on the 10th of December. And I'd like to thank the city employees, particularly Patty, and those working in the office for putting together a very, very thorough book for us to review so that we'll be able to live up to the challenges that have been given us. All members were present, and I'd like to let you know that there's a lot of talent on that team. It's a very, very powerful group of people, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to come up with some ideas and some innovative thinking that we can present to the council for your consideration. The meeting was somewhat preliminary in nature. Attorney Riley talked to us about the sunshine laws and how those apply to us, and made it perfectly clear that they do, and thank you. Vice Mayor Dunn took time out of his day and gave us a brief on the strategic plan and how our role as an advisory committee plays into that, so we kind of get a better idea what we're supposed to be looking for. Work was done on a document that gave us very clear objectives for us to use, and we all took a good look at that. And we're going to go back to work twice this month, and hopefully when I come back in February, we'll have some significant recommendations, or at least maybe in a preliminary matter, for the council to consider. Again, we are meeting twice this month, and I'm looking forward to it. And I came a little bit late to the work session, so I would just like to add that it's pretty exciting to me. This is going to be a great committee. If anyone out here, all meetings are open to the public, so if anyone would like to come and give us some ideas, we certainly welcome that. And I'm glad to see us all working together, and I think that I'm just really excited for a great year. So wish everyone a happy new year, and look forward to giving you a little bit more substantive work in February. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. And just so everyone knows, January 13th at 4 p.m. and
That's
January 22nd at 4 p.m. are your
4
two
p.m.
meetings this
That's
month.
correct.
If anyone wants to
Yes,
come
ma'am.
to those.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the great work. Ms. Van Scar?
Jim Van Scoy, Park and Rec Board, 7th Street, Bel Air Beach. In December, we had a wonderful children's holiday party here with Santa. The kids got their pictures taken with Santa. Santa read them a Christmas story, and the night before Christmas, the kids got to decorate a cookie and make a craft, and the city gave them coloring books and crayons to take home, and it was a fun time by all. And it was very simple, very nice, and I believe it went off without a hitch, which is always a good thing. The other thing I want to talk to the council about is, now you've all already approved a car show. So I'd like to get a date from the council, some approval, a time and date from the council on when we could host it. I would like to do it on a Sunday afternoon for 3 hours, okay? Basically, let me just go over the general plan, and this is not, the board knows it's coming, but I want the council, I always like the council to approve the time and the date if possible, okay? Basically what it is people can bring their cars. It doesn't matter if it's an old car, a new car, if they want to participate in the show, they can participate in it. The only cars that will come down 9th Street are the cars participating in the show. They would have to sign up. We would have to have a finalized date a week prior to the event. We would have a set layout like we've done before. All parking for non-participants would be here in City Hall. We don't expect it to be very big, and we're talking probably, I want to say, the most 20-25 cars in the show, okay? Quite simply, just the people that participate would get a little goodie bag. We already have the trophies, so it would be paying to have the nameplates put on them, distributing them, and I'm hoping the council will participate in judging again and awarding the trophies. And basically we would have a couple little booths, maybe 2 to 3 booths only at the event. And we usually have 2 or 3, so that's why we would have 2 or 3. It's a very small, laid back kind of event on a Sunday afternoon. We might have, somebody had already said, well, I'd like to sponsor it. They were with a veterans organization. They want to come and they want to talk about the Wounded Warriors. They want to have a booth there for the Wounded Warriors, and so they would like to sponsor and come and spend $25. So what I'm looking at is the each participant would pay $20 to bring the car in, and then they would receive these goodie bags and then a trophy. Who won the car contest. Sometimes in these events, you give a participation, an award for it, and again, that would have to come from council as well. I want to try, when we do make these major decisions, have it come from the council itself, so that way there's no future issues. So I'd like to be able to get some feedback from you all on this right now. I'm looking for March 29th as a date in the afternoon. I'm thinking from 2 to 5 p.m.
That's everything?
That's, yes.
Want to hear from me, because I probably got more cars than anybody here. I have my own little show. $20 is a little high, okay? I go to a Corvette show, it's about $30, and it's, 500 cars, and it's a pretty big show. You've been to that one with me. Largo did theirs, it was $10. So check the price if you want. I don't know what that included, but just that's the first thing that came to mind. Typically, if you go into a show, participation awards are usually what's called a dash plaque. It's usually an artistic thing that says, for this case, Bel Air Beach Car Show. You might have there's somebody who's an artist who draws something up. It's usually that logo when it's printed, it's a little metal plaque that's about that big, and guys collect them. So that's usually a participation award. You have the trophies already. The only other thing that I would say is, and without having had one here, we're not going to know how many actual antiques you get, but the one thing that riles collectors a lot is when you start having all kinds of cars coming into the show, because you get somebody with their 2012 Toyota, and it's like, why am I putting my classic car next to this? So if you're trying to attract the classic car groups, you might want to limit it just to the classic cars. You can open it up. I mean, I've seen everything, but it's one of the rubs on some of these shows that they're bringing in too many new cars, and it just becomes a parking lot, basically. So that's just something to think about. The day is good, as long as you don't have any conflict. There's a website, when we go home, I'll show you the website. There's a website that shows all the car shows in this area, so just make sure that there's nothing major going on, or that there's no major big show going on, because there's a couple big ones that happen during this time of the year.
Well, how about an alternate date is the 22nd, March 22nd? So would the 22nd and the 29th be okay with the council?
I think those
Either of those dates?
I think those dates are good. I don't see an issue with those dates.
That's fine.
City manager, do we have any private parties that are booked for any of those timeframes? Or would you need time to check on that? Because
Yeah,
if somebody's already previously booked it.
I don't know that, but it would be outside anyway, so.
We'd be taking up their parking places. That's actually a good point. I mean,
Well, but typically it's not a Sunday thing, typically it's a Saturday thing. Except on a holiday, right? We can check on that.
And can I say something else, June? I know you don't have a car show unless you have participants bringing a car in. So I'm no expert at these car shows. I don't know anything about them, but I'm going. I've been to a few. And I'm thinking, why would you charge them other than maybe, unless there's a nominal insurance fee or something like that, just to cover cost? I don't know why, because without participation, we don't have a car show, right? So.
Correct.
It's one of those weird things in life. They charge you to show your car, and they let everybody else come in for free. It's just weird. It works like that.
Yeah,
It's the way it works. And the guys, people will pay it, but they'll pay it to a point. I mean, for a top quality show that's professionally judged, I might pay $30, $35, like a Corvette show, because I have Corvettes. For the average local show, I think $10, $15 is a decent amount of money.
Well, it's good that you compared to Largo, because I know they just did one recently.
They did a
so
nice
that's-
one.
yeah.
Okay, and I'm willing to go 10, but I can't actually because of the cost of changing the nameplates, and I do know that we do have money left over from the Fall Festival, but, the trying to make sure that we at least break even on these events would be the key If we have to dip into a little bit, that's fine, but I would like to at least see us break even on these events.
And just, I mean, I know this isn't your meeting, so I don't want to get into too many details, but I just want to say the thought of maybe having vendors and getting a percentage of the sales to offset costs might be another way of having funds, just a thought.
Well, and that being said, we do have one place, Largo Medical had expressed an interest in sponsoring the event. So if Largo Medical Center is willing to sponsor it, then we actually might be able to go with very, very minimum of a charge, if any,
But I assume we'll
whatsoever.
have
But
food and drink.
I have to, I'm sorry.
We'll have food and drink vendors that you could potentially.
Yeah, but you'd only want to have, because it is such a small event, you might want to only have one. You know, I'll put it out there in an email, and the first one who responds is probably the one I would give it to, as far as the food and the drink, because again, this is on a low, a small scale. This is nothing, it's not like the Corvettes of Carlisle or down at the pier. So if you allow too many vendors and then they don't make enough sales out of it, then you have our 8 vendors. So I've learned that. So we want to make sure we try to keep it on a small scale when it comes to the vendors as well. So I would think if the council is okay with that as well, I would like to just have one food and drink person there, one company, and I'll just take, and it will be, because I'll have them respond in an email. It'll be the first one who responds, and that way I have proof. It's whoever, the first one that responds. So.
Now, everything that you need to purchase or supply for this event, all that information will be sent to our city manager so he can actually do the purchasing and authorize all of that, correct?
Correct. And and that was the other thing I wanted to mention, that I reached out to the city manager and I think it was the city clerk and maybe even Kyle, I'm not sure. But anyhow, we had stuff left over from the children's party, and I asked if they could exchange it for some stuff to put in the goodie bags instead of us storing it or, just disposing of it. And were you able to do that? They were able to do, huh?
We have some.
They have some, but they were able to exchange some of it so we could use it for the next event, trying to keep in line with the fact that we're trying to keep the cost down of all these events so we can put on more and not dip into that fund.
So the stuff you weren't able to return, can you donate that to like a children's hospital or something along that line? I don't know what items you're talking about, but.
Let's see, okay, we've got like 80 boxes of crayons or something.
Right.
That's really it, right?
But that's stored in
there's-
air conditioning, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember if, were there coloring books left or not? Do you remember?
What we tried to do.
I have an inventory.
We have an inventory of it.
Yeah.
But you still got that stuff, you just stored it because I don't think it's not like ice cream, it's not gonna melt. I mean, it can be reused for something else, another
The next event.
Right.
At the next event.
June, before I forget, most importantly for a car show, and there's no need to reinvent the wheel, but work with the city manager and the city attorney, and you can supply them by going online and picking up any of these. You need a release for every participant. These are expensive vehicles, and they need to release the city. And you do not have to start from scratch. There's plenty of good ones out there, but it should be given through so that it can be properly reviewed.
It's actually on my list too.
That's an absolute must. Anyone who doesn't sign the release can't put their car on.
Participate,
It's that
right,
simple.
correct, correct. And I was gonna reach out to the city attorney for that.
So you'll brief us next month then as you firm this up?
Absolutely, absolutely. And is there anything else the council would like to add? My park board meeting is coming up actually on the 13th, so I will be addressing all these issues with them. So if there's anything, or you all can think of even after this, if you could just send me an email. And I will get with them on it and send you an email back and let you know.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we next move to the consent agenda. And the only item on that is the approval of December 2nd, 2019 City Council meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. The minutes are approved. Consent agenda is approved. Item 5 has been removed at the request of the city manager, so we move to item 6. Authorize the city manager to execute an extension to the memorandum of understanding for accounting services. Mr. Reeves?
Yes, Mayor and Council, last month you approved appointing Andrew Tess and the accounting firm as the city treasurer. And all this is doing is, he's willing to maintain the same rate. All we're going to do is extend it to the end of the fiscal year, and then we would create a new contract for the next fiscal year. So we get in line with the budgeting year. So that's all I'm asking.
And as I read it, was the exact same agreement. We're just
Right.
changing the dates on it, right?
Right.
Okay. We have a motion for that?
So moved.
We have a second? Council discussion?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Are they participating at all in the finance committee? Are they attending any of the meetings?
Well, the finance committee's only had
I know.
really a thing. They will if we ask them to. So at some point in time, I'll ask probably Andy or Heather, one of them, to come in and give a presentation. But right now, the finance committee's kind of getting their, their legs.
We're getting started.
And, I attend them, so, I'm giving them the budget information, that stuff, so.
Is there any point in which Andrew Tess will attend a council meeting to do a presentation to us? Or is that only going to be around the budget time? I'm just trying to understand what to expect from him.
Well, he will not come and do the financial presentations, he'll provide them to you, which he has done in the packet. If it's a special circumstance that you're asking about, I guess, you can ask him to do that. They have been very flexible. Right now, as an example, we're going through the audit, and of course, the auditor's schedule is a little unique. So, he's came in and Heather's came in and at times that they typically aren't here. He was here today, but he was here Friday, he was here last week on Monday when the auditor was here. So they've been very flexible and they've even done some weekend work, so.
So can I add that potentially we should ask him to give us a report of areas that he sees that we maybe should focus on as a council? I mean, we're getting the monthly report, it's great. It's the typical, again, here's money in out, that sort of thing. But having a financial professional look at it and give us some advice would be helpful. Is that something we can ask from him, that he can do a quick summary, everything looks in line? Maybe you all should focus on, how to, we think we have a problem with some of these capital improvements, how we're gonna pay for them, that sort of thing. I know that's part of what the finance committee is for, but it would be nice that our accountant communicate with us a little bit, other than providing us just a report.
I'll have that
Written
discussion.
summary or something, I'm not saying every month, but quarterly.
I'll have that discussion with him, it's not a problem.
Mr. Reeves, is there anything that you're looking for from these financial people that they're not providing you? Are you totally satisfied with that?
No, they're doing a good job. We're changing some things because some of the things that were previously done were, I guess I looked at them as a little cumbersome and why were we doing this? But that was the way the previous finance person did it. And so we're working on that. We're also going to work on the budget template for next year. We've already kind of talked about that a little bit, and we're gonna try to clean some things up to make it more, how do I say it, more fluid instead of, trying to, it appeared at times things were kind of buried, and we need to unbury them. So, and Andy's been very good about that. I know he's had one conversation with the vice mayor, and I know that the vice mayor asked him a lot of questions, and I got the impression from the vice mayor that, you know, he was pretty forthcoming with his comments to you. And, you know, if any of the other council members or the mayor want to meet with him, you know, we can work that out.
Who's doing the investment for us right now? I know, and the reason why I asked, I remember looking at these things and they were saying that we were investing in laddering, but it really wasn't laddered properly, like a true ladder
Well,
structure. So
right.
is someone working on that for us, or?
Well, Andy's looking at that, and the SBA is paying probably one of the better rates. We have CDs that are coming due, and we're looking at the rates that we're getting from the bank there, because there's a lot of them that were laddered. And if the SBA is giving us a higher percentage rate, which currently they are, there's no purpose in setting that money in a CD when you get a few points more from someone that I can say, okay, I'll put this money here today, and if I need it tomorrow, I can get it. Where a CD is a little different situation. We have, let's see, recently we extended a couple CDs to 6 months instead of what Melanie had them set up as year CDs. We reduced them because we want to look at the rates going forward. And one of the CDs, because we have a capital project, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th that we'll be needing to make a payment on, we took one of those out and then put the rest of the money, which was, I believe it was $200,000, we moved to the SBA because the interest rate was better. So we're going to look further into that. At some point, the council may consider looking at because there are firms that do that, and maybe that's something that the finance committee, we can discuss further there, and they give you some recommendations.
One of the things I want to bring up, Rick, to your finance committee, when we were, Glenn and I were at the Florida League of Cities at the convention, there's municipal credit unions and stuff that are, these are, you know, a lot of our neighboring towns invest in these things. These are legitimate, they're not fly-by-night things. One's run by the clerk of the court here. And the Florida League of Cities, there's a variety that are out there, but I'm not sure how they stack up investment-wise. I got the impression that they may be paying us a little bit more. And when I looked at our finances, I think we've got like close to $5 million or so sitting around right now. So that's I mean, that's when I say sitting around, it's not sitting around uninvested, but there's a fair amount of capital to be invested. So, you know, a half a point on that is significant dollars, particularly when we're talking about check valves that cost a couple thousand, so.
Yeah, so, yeah, we are, like today, actually, we renewed the CD with Bank United, and it was like 1.65 for 6 months. But, you know, we have to look at other investment options, because they were paying, you know, 2+, and since the Fed has rolled back interest rates, they're backing up on us.
I've got one comment. We've had discussions about this budget and briefs and metrics kind of things. The pendulum has swung into the opposite direction here. We used to get a monthly report from the finance officer, and it was death by charts and spreadsheets and everything else. We said, well, we don't really need it to that level of detail. But I mean, we're into the second quarter now. We haven't really had anything similar to that. So maybe I'll get together with you, and it's time to sit down and just come up with a half a dozen things and give a quick 15-minute presentation to the council of, hey, we're charting on revenues and expenditures and that sort of thing. So
Okay.
I'll take that offline with the city manager. It's time.
So we still have before our board here, our council, to authorize the city manager to execute his extension. Is there any more council comments? Any citizen comments? Leslie? There you go.
2300 Gulf Boulevard. And Glenn sort of brought this up. Our charter provides for 3 charter officers, the city manager, the city clerk, and the finance director. And we haven't had a finance director for several months now. And I'm wondering, is there any plan to fill the charter officer finance director position? And if so, how this accounting firm fits in with that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure, city manager.
Yeah, we appointed the person that has the company as the city treasurer last month.
But is he considered the charter
Yes.
finance officer?
Yes.
Okay, I never saw that in any of the,
Yeah, it was in the resolution that
We did
was
say it last month,
Yeah.
last council.
December.
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent question. And as part of charter review, I mean, this is something that we'll need to take a look at, because obviously this was a change from last time, so we have to decide. But it seems like it's working very well, and I think for a city our size, it might be the right fit. Any other citizen comments? I'll close those. Any other council comments? So we're voting now on to authorize the city manager to execute an extension to the memorandum of understanding for accounting services. I can do this by voice, right? I don't have to do this individually, right?
Correct.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. City manager authorized to proceed. Item 7, consideration of appointment of Park and Rec Board member and alternate board member. City Council to vote for appointment of board members. We have 2 members that have, is anyone here from that? Yes. That you must be Jean Vizio. Okay, nice to meet you. Lisa Ilia's not here, right? Okay. So the way we normally do this is we'll make a motion here and then we will we'll do a vote, but we always give you an opportunity to come up and spend 3 minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself. We've seen your applications, they're in front of us, but there's nothing like having you here. But we can ask questions, so but we'll ask easy ones.
Go ahead. I'm open to questions.
Good evening. My name is Jean Missio. I live on, am I supposed to say where I live? I noticed you guys all do. On 6th Street, near you. I just retired in November. I spent 35 years as a healthcare executive in a Fortune 10 company. I have lived in Bel Air Beach for about 3.5 years. We love it. That is my husband, Tony, of 37 years. We have children that live here too. We are very animate about this area and protecting it, improving it, and making it a better community, which I know you were trying to do with your horse show. So that's me in a nutshell. Ask away.
Council? We're let her off easy. I did want, I have a very easy question actually for you. I know you said you were open also to other boards, but I think there's 2 spots, and I'm looking at June right now, and you're nodding your head, I think, but there's 2 spots open on your board right now? An alternate and a permanent? Okay, so everybody's gonna win tonight. So your preference would be to be on the Parks Board right now? I don't think there's anything on planning, is there?
No.
No, not right now? Because I think that was your other choice, right?
Yes, and probably a little bit because I wasn't sure exactly what the other one did. But I have run companies and run boards, so.
The Parks Board, just so you know, there's one gentleman who travels quite a bit, so the alternate, in almost every occasion, can wind up being part of the meeting. So it's alternate just as good as being on it. So it doesn't matter whether it's alternate or regular, so.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so you're open to everything. Lisa is not here, right? Council, do we have any comments before we go to a vote? I think we were given voting sheets, right? Okay. So we're going to vote for 1 on the first ballot. You need to get 4 votes to win, which shouldn't be a problem. So you can vote for 1 member and 1 alternate on the first ballot, and it's by paper, so it goes to the city clerk.
Right, and then the second was just a spare.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's easier than the last one, huh? It's easier than that last ballot, remember? It was crazy.
Councilmember Aki voted for Ms. Bizio as the alternate and Ms. Elia as the member. Councilmember Beam voted for Ms. Bizio as the alternate, Ms. Elia as the member. Mayor Manzo voted for Ms. Bizio as the alternate, Ms. Elia as the member. Vice Mayor Gunn voted for Ms. Bizio as the alternate and Ms. Elia as a member. Councilmember Gaddis voted for Ms. Bizio as the member and Ms. Elia as the alternate. Councilmember Swope voted for Ms. Bizio as the member and Ms. Elia as the alternate. And Councilmember Shirley voted for Ms. Bizio as the member and Ms. Elia as the alternate.
Okay, so we have a close vote. It looks like Lisa Elia 4-3 for member. So Lisa would be the member and Ms. Bizio would be the alternate. Sounds good? Congratulations. Thank you. First meeting is the 13th at 4 o'clock? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on. We're finished with the regular agenda. So now we go on to the city attorney's report.
Three very quick things. Some time ago, the city council asked me to prepare a memorandum on the city's liability insurance coverage for council members and board members. I emailed that to you today. It of course, took me longer to put it together than I would have liked, but you have it today. And if you take a look at that, and in the not so distant future, if there's any questions, I would be happy to address them. So that's the first thing. Second things, I said earlier that the work session I thought would be one of the most important meetings that you've had this year, and I've been sitting here reflecting on that, and I'm very optimistic that it will be. And I'm optimistic for another reason, in that after 4 or 5 months of being here, I finally figured out how to set this chair properly. A real breakthrough tonight for me.
Put that in the memos.
That's all.
Thank you. You said you had 3 items, I was only 2.
One was set in the chair.
Oh, okay. We won't count that. City manager?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I put some stuff under my tab, so we don't get it lost. I know last month it ended up under 12 and something happened, but anyway, so the excess stuff that I put in, Councilmember Shirley and I have had several discussions. We talked to Chris Rowe, or I have talked to Chris Rowe. We've also talked to Libby Rodriguez, and I put some information in here about the stormwater fee and a proposal from Chris Rowe using a company called Stantec. I had a discussion with Chris. Libby we used for the undergrounding. She's given a very good price. The only concern Chris had was that she had never done anything with stormwater. And, you know, I had that discussion with Councilmember Shirley about that. We had some discussions about it, so that's a concern Chris had. Chris Rowe is the attorney we used for the undergrounding project. And what I also put was a sheet of our purchasing policy. And how you want to handle this. Do we want to do an RFP, or do you want to do what they did with the undergrounding, which was, they just awarded it for professional services, because there's some exemptions there in our purchasing policy. So if you want me to move forward with an RFP, then I'll start work on that. If you want me to, I bring it to the council, it'd have to be brought back to you to approve that, or to approve if we utilized the services of Brian Miller Olive again with his the cost estimate from his agent is with him, the attorney and him, is $36,000. Now the Stantec number was 24, and Libby's was like 13,000 around. But as Chris was a little concerned that she didn't have any stormwater experience, and it would cost more from legal services. So realistically, at this point, I need some feedback from council moving forward, so we can move forward with this, or so that we can move forward in the process. Because, as an example, there would have to be a budget amendment done for $40,000. The individual that Fred brought us, Mark Lawson, saying that right? He told us between $40,000 and $80,000 at the time that he spoke to us, and we went to something we used previously with their price. So, what is the pleasure of the council?
Well, I think we should take it out for RFP. We talked extensively in 2019 about everything going out for RFP. So I really feel like we need to go that option.
I'm going to suggest we put this into that ever-growing list of our work session, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to plant a big stop sign here, at least from my perspective, because we've talked about stormwater, but I'm not quite sure what we're getting out of this, what we're going to do with this money, what it's going to accomplish. I know from doing a little bit of research that and it seems like, and again, this is not a critique of anyone, I know we're anxious to get into this project, but I did about a half an hour of research on this, and I came up with about 8 pages of grant money that's available for all of this. And I want to make sure before we ever go out to the citizens, and that's what this is about, these folks help us come up with the assessments and that type of stuff. Yeah. Before we do that, I want to find out what else is out there, if anything, that we might be able to do. And I also want to see what the citizens' feeling is on all of this stuff. I mean, I think everybody's, I'm not going to say, I don't know if everybody's on board with this. So I'm not sure if I'm on board with it. I want to hear what we're going to do with this. What are we going to do with this pot of money once we get it? So I think we have a nice little discussion. I'm not against, you folks have done your homework clearly, so I think these would be the people to do it if we decide to go forward, but I'm not so sure I'm ready to take that big leap yet.
Well, that's why I'm asking,
That's just my opinion, but.
Yeah. Where do you want it?
Can I just add a few things, and that is that, first, it's not a big pot of money. This is what we're talking about collecting is a small fee that will not nearly touch our $3.8 million budget to do the stormwater improvements that are required. So, to this point, there's been no money collected. There's a lot of money targeted to go out. No idea how we're going to pay for it. So I have an issue with that. I said that I approved that, well, no, let me take that back. I don't think I voted yes for the last stormwater punch that we took down because we had no plan on how we're going to pay for it. And this just keeps getting kicked down the road. The reason we're bringing this in front of council, one, our purchasing policy allows us, professional services, to enter into an agreement with Chris Rowe, who has done services, he's provided services for us in the past and done a phenomenal job. I think everyone can attest to that. We need to move this forward. There's no plan, we just keep spending money, and there's no plan in recouping any of it. And clearly, flooding is an issue. We have residents showing up to our meeting saying they need their street work done. How do we propose paying for that? So I think that we're not asking that we just write a blank check. This money will be recouped in the first year, but you have to start somewhere. And we've got to start, because it's kind of one of those things where it's a process. It doesn't just happen. We have to do studies, we have to, come up with a plan, and that's where the engagement with Chris, he puts together the plan for us.
Right, this is not it's not an action item right now.
No,
This
no.
is part of your report, actually, so
No.
my suggestion is we move this, because my point, I hear everything Jody Shirley just said, but this is what I found on the internet, and I got 8 pages of grant information, so I want to know, this is from Florida Department of EPA, Environmental Protection, can we get some of this money? Because I don't want to find out after we're going into people, I don't care how small the assessment is, it's still a tax, whether you throw it on the water bill or whether you throw it on the tax bill, it's a tax. And before I take money out of any citizen's pocket, I voted against the tax increase, so I want to know that we have beaten the bushes, and we could be doing both at the same time, but I just want to know, and we haven't had that discussion, at least, and if we have, I missed it, so I want to make sure I'm clear on this.
Well, we did have some discussion with Swiftmud, I can tell you that.
They're one of them, I know that.
They came out and had 2+ meetings, submitted all kinds of documents to them. They basically told us, no, you're not a cooperative funding because you're not a regional. And really, how these grants in that scheme work, it's called impact. And if it's going to impact 10 people, and we found that with the hazard mitigation grant that we tried for 7th Street, we don't have that impact, because 7th Street has, 12 houses on it, 13 houses maybe. So it's not an impact when it comes to the benefit cost ratio. So unfortunately, that's our situation, because we're a small community. And these projects are targeted to different areas. So I think what Councilmember Shirley is asking is at least start the process, and we do need to have some more discussion about it, start the process moving forward, and at least that money, if we did start a stormwater fee, it would be collected and it could only be used for stormwater projects. It can't be used for anything else. So that's what I think Councilmember Shirley is asking.
Right, and I think that the fee would not eliminate our ability to get grants if the grant money's available. So, because the fee will never pay for the amount of infrastructure that has been buried under the rug, no one's dealt with it, so it needs to be dealt with. The other thing is, we're gonna have regular maintenance. Clearly, we've got a check valve we've just installed that needs maintenance. So it will also help maintain the system once we get it corrected. So not only do you have the $3.8 million in partially correcting the problem, but then you have to maintain it ongoing.
Yeah, so, if we could maybe have further discussion, at the work session, that's going to be my next question. We've traditionally done the work sessions on the 3rd Monday.
It's a holiday this month.
Well, that's why I'm saying that.
21st, the next day?
That's fine, depending on, but what I would like to do, if we can come to a consensus with the council, that the work sessions will always be on the 3rd Monday, not Wednesday, except when there's a holiday and it needs to be modified. So for January, the 20th is a holiday, so we need to come up with another one for January. And while we're at it, we might as well talk about February. Because the same situation's happening in February.
To keep in agreement with our ordinances, because it's very specific about who can call a work session. I can call it unilaterally, I think we need 4 individuals or 3 individuals on council.
Just to get it.
We can pass a resolution, though, to give you that if you want, but I mean, we can give you
No,
an answer tonight,
I'm just saying, then we have a schedule and the council.
The third is fine, the third Monday is fine. I mean, I just, somebody has to call it officially, and, you know, if I'm away or something, then you have, it's a pain to try and get 3 people to come together with the Sunshine Act. It's impossible.
So if we get some consensus, then hopefully we can work forward on that.
Tuesday the 21st, I mean, Monday the 20th is Martin Luther King's birthday, our building is closed, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's out, so 21st would be the Tuesday.
I cannot do
Good.
it. I have a standing third Tuesday. I can't do it either.
Wednesday,
Wednesday I can.
23rd,
22nd.
I'm seeing that a little bit.
Is this 22nd?
22nd, I'm sorry, yes, 22nd. So Wednesday the 22nd, 6 p.m.
Does that conflict with another meeting?
No, there's the 22nd is,
Or is that 4?
oh, theirs is a 4. I don't think Rick's going to, I think they talked about 2 hours, right, Rick?
Yes.
You'll be in the conference room anyway, probably, right? Yeah, so then, even if they will. And the third Monday of February, is that a holiday too?
Yes.
Yeah, figured. So, same deal. Tuesday's no good, right, for everybody, so we go to the Wednesday? I don't know what day that is.
That'd be the 19th? And then from then on, we'll
Just do a resolution and we'll give you a schedule. We can do a calendar if we want, at least a preliminary calendar, and that'll.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And it's
trying.
called by the council and we're good to go, and everybody can calendar. That's
So then I'll set up a calendar for the 3rd Wednesday of the rest of the year.
We don't need any special, regular sessions, right? Special sessions? We have nothing pressing at this point that we haven't.
No, you're going to be getting, I'm going to give you the preliminary budget schedule because I just got that.
Just finished this.
Well, I just got that from the tax assessor, so the dates, some things, so I'm going to give you that preliminarily, so at least you've got that ahead of time. So, okay. Other items, I've given you the financials for October and November. Andy just gave you the November late Friday, so it wasn't in your packet, but I put it at your desk. The flood insurance rate, just want to kind of let everyone know, tentatively, the increase for next year is going to be about 11.3%.
How much?
11.3%,
What's that for?
beginning in April 2020, or this year, what am I saying?
What tax is that? What is that?
That's the flood insurance that you pay on your home. So I just want to kind of give the public knowledge of that so they're aware of that. I have an agreement with, an interlocal agreement with Pinellas County. He sent it to me, Fred has looked at it. I asked him for $50,000 to help me with refurbishing the beach access walkovers. And they told me they're gonna give me that, it's just through their process. So that, we don't have to match it, although we do have some money that we've saved for helping with that if it goes over that amount. But there's 4 of them, and once I get the final agreement settled, then I'll bring that to council. But I wanted to let you know that I had submitted a request to them some time ago, and we're down to, I believe it's 2 easements that we need for beach renourishment. And hopefully we'll get those in the coming weeks, because I think we'll be the first to get them all.
So we were ahead of the game, they were saying.
The code report is here. We did have a short-term rental over the holiday period. I went to the address on New Year's Eve, and then set the deputy there on New Year's Day. So we have a report. It's a house on Bay Shore, reoccurring. I think in the future, talking to the city attorney about this, we need to, because this is a reoccurring house, we need to, we don't want to mess with our ordinance, but maybe the fine ordinance we can increase when it's over and over and over. Because right now, this is the 5th time on this house. They have a $6,000 lien against their house currently, and there's going to be another one. And so they evidently didn't get the message. So, but the code, you'll see the report there. Danny's been doing a really good job about getting out there and talking to the people. And we're going to start sticking this in and then updating it just before we send the packet out, so you at least have that to see.
Can I ask you a question on the code then? First off, I agree with you, Danny's doing a very good job. I'm looking at the code, what's being enforced, it's consistent with the way we've been, so he's right on with the way he's enforcing. He's not getting too detailed, you know, because I mean, the code book, as you know, has a lot of stuff in it. He's hitting the big stuff that I think is the stuff that everybody would agree is problem areas. The one thing I saw in here that bothered me, it didn't look like we even were able to catch them, but again, it looks like we've got a barge anchoring to our seawall. And that really bothers me, only because those things are brand new and I don't want to see them destroyed by some, you know, person taking advantage of it. So it didn't look like that was able to be caught, but what can we do? Because it just, you know, we pay for this and we just fixed it.
Actually, how they're not anchored to the seawall. What they do is they drop the anchor and they put a board down to get off to the seawall, which we told them not to do that. And lately it hasn't been Spieler, it's been another company, I forget what the name of it is, but by, I guess, the water navigation laws, or, you know, I'm not familiar with all that, probably Dave and Jody are probably very familiar, Mark maybe. You can anchor a boat in certain areas of the water and it's not illegal. Spieler's figured that out because I've told him several times, you don't tie it to my tree, you don't tie it to anything on the land. And so he hasn't, but, you know, occasionally we get one. So no one's there, and then the barge disappears a half hour later. So we've tried to prevent them from throwing stuff off the seawall because they don't want to traverse from Bel Air Causeway to Harrison Avenue if they're building a dock, or to any of those condos. And that's what happens on Harrison. It's mainly work on the condos next door. So
Plus, it's a lot easier to offload right there at the street rather than a floating dock at the marina.
Right.
To that point, can I just say, I just kind of a brainstorm I had the other day, the outfall slip at the marina. Is it possible we could make that available for rental to dock builders and give them access to that, to offload their barges and charge them a fee for doing so?
Let me look at that a little more.
I think there's a little dock and maybe we take the
Yeah,
dock
it is,
out,
it
give them
is.
a little wider space, they only need the seawall.
Yeah, there's a little dock, but it's the outfall. But if all they're doing is load and unload, hey, maybe start a business.
Yeah, maybe we could generate some money there.
We talked about camera systems. We don't need the Taj Mahal systems. We need one little camera, one little wireless camera that's recording over here to get these people doing this stuff, and then turn it over to the sheriff or Coast Guard or whoever we can. But can we look into maybe getting something that we can just stick up there and
You mean on the bridge or something?
Yeah, where this is happening, because you're right, they got there before we could even get patrol out there or, code out there, they're gone. But, when you're telling me they're throwing stuff, and it's like, this is just destruction waiting to happen, and then it's not gonna be them who did it, it's gonna be somebody else, but they are gonna be the people who did it, because it's not, Dave Gaddis and the other people who are good boaters doing this, they're trying to save expense over here. Jody just said it, it's easier to offload by us. that's wrong. You know, that's a park, that's private property, it's not for loading. So I'm just wondering, I mean, it doesn't have to be an expensive camera, a little wireless thing, but even something that records on a chip that, you know, when you see something like this, now you're gonna have the evidence that maybe it gives you something more that you can put some teeth with these guys.
Look further into that.
Deer cam.
Yeah, hunting cams, yeah.
Where it moves, I told you about the audit. I've got Kyle signed up to to go to a class next week. We got him in the Pinellas one because the closest one was Doral, so thank God for that. That saved us some money. But he's going to be going through the floodplain manager certification. That'll help the city with some points with the CRS. There'll be 2 of us then that are certified, so that's good. I'm getting some pricing for doing the paving on Bellevue Estates Island. And what I may do is try to come back, because we got a good price on 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and just jump off that contract so we wouldn't have to rebid it, since we have a bid for that. Kyle and I gave that to you, it's called Total Pay, it's a pavement condition index. That's one of our things that we are supposed to be doing a strategic plan. Very inexpensive, it's about $1,000 to do this, and we're gonna research it a little more with the individual, but we had a kind of a, I'll call it a web conference with them. And what it does, it takes a, we'll say like an iPhone, you mount it in a vehicle, and you drive the streets, and it takes vibrations, and then there's some other data which would help us. I know some of the other cities have done pavement condition indexes, and it's cost them $20,000 or $30,000 to have it done. So we're looking into this. This may be a kind of a way to rank the streets in a simpler way and more cost effective. We're scheduling the final inspection for Monday on 3rd through 6th Street. Everything's done there. There's new inlet boxes. There's some new piping that was put in. The outfalls, they've got the check valves in. So we're moving along with that. Next one is 7th Street. Duke for the Bellevue Estates Island undergrounding has sent me an email that they're going to give us a $73,000 credit. And I think there was some discussion that we need to have. Do we want that credit back in funding, or do we want to try to use that credit to improve the connection and take it to Gulf Boulevard? So that's a discussion that's going to have to be held with the residents. So, and I haven't talked to them, because I did ask them, well, why don't you just keep this, I've made a comment, keep the $73,000 if the residents agree with it, and you take it to Gulf Boulevard, and we don't have anything to do with it. You know, you do that. I haven't got any feedback on that yet because of the holidays. They were all gone. But I did get a price from Mark Porter, and to do the conduit along there would cost about $30,000. And the difference, as I see it from the estimate they told me, with us doing the conduit, for that area was about $42,000 in Duke dollars. So, you know, it's pretty close if the residents want to do that to improve the quality of service. Streetlights. We're having a discussion with them currently. I've got a conference call with them tomorrow morning. Because we moved a few streetlights, they feel that they're owed more money, and because we had to stop installation because of the wires went down, they feel they're owed more money. We'll see where that goes. Initially, they told us that we owed them for the hill coils, but that's been taken care of. Because I kind of pushed back on that and said, hey, wait a minute, you told me, I would have just told you to put the concrete in. You're the one that came with the hill coils, so my understanding is that's a dead subject. So the only issue left is a fee to come back and finish it. The lights are sitting here in Pinellas County in Spieler, and they want to charge some changes for moving some poles that were requested to be moved. So, which is reasonable, I think. So we'll see what that number comes back in. But I've heard positive comments from residents that live down there. Wright House still has a few issues we got to get resolved. Hopefully it's not of you that have a wire going across your, I don't think it is. But other than that, for the most part, the project is, I'd say, we'll take the streetlights out, I'll say 90%. And I think everyone that I've talked to, I haven't had anyone say anything but, where's the streetlights? So if there's been any other feedback, let me know. And that's everything I have. Sorry for the length, but had a lot of little things.
And did we get an update from the county? I saw a lot of trucks going down my block on that, the 7th Street lift station. I know they've been working on some of it, but are they giving us an update where they stand?
No, I've got a schedule that they gave me. Most of the work that it appears is going to start sometime in the 1st of February and be done by July 20, with a closeout of August 20. So, and the majority of the work isn't on 7th Street, it's in Indian Rocks.
Right.
It's to get the stuff so it pumps faster or further. The county did reimburse us for picking up the oil spill. That was spilled at the last pumping. They did pay us back for that. We spent about $2,300. They gave us the $2,300 back. And they also gave us money for that crushed inlet. My kind of thought was, why would I replace that if I'm going to replace it with it,
Right.
at this point? So
Found money.
uh,
Found money.
it's a little bit, not a great amount. So that's it.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Council, citizens? Yes, we have
I just
citizens.
got one question. My name is Tom Brady.
Tom, do me a favor, come up here so we can hear you.
Well, you can't hear me?
They gotta hear you on that mic.
Is it on?
If it's green, it is.
Hello?
There you
Hello? Okay. Who pays for the electric on our streetlights?
We do.
Okay, I live at 110 24th Street. My streetlight's on 24 hours a day.
Well, it's a flat fee. We aren't paying extra.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
But I will, you live on
110 24th Street.
okay.
It's right on the corner of the property. You'll see it if you drive by during the day. It'll light your car up. Thanks, appreciate it.
I'm sorry, you didn't catch your name up here. You said
Tom Brahan?
Tom Brakeman. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate
But
it.
we aren't paying the electric for it. It's flat fee.
Okay.
Any other citizens? Okay, thank you. City Clerk?
Nothing.
Nothing? Unfinished business. I had one item. What happened to our charter review committee? We were going to set up a time with the captain, and you were going to set up with the admiral and captain.
Patty, you talked to the captain, right? Charter review captain?
Oh, Captain Zabel?
Table, yeah.
We were gonna do that as close to the beginning of the year as we could to get this thing jump-started.
Yeah, I mean, that was before Christmas, so I'd have to double check,
Okay.
because I don't recall
I mean, I get
the
like the
exact
beginning of the day
conversation.
here, but if we could, yeah, we really want to get that organized. And the only reason why this becomes important is we're up against an August deadline to have everything on the ballot. And if we miss that deadline, then we're going to have to do our own election, and that's just money that the city doesn't really have to spend. We're already holding a presidential election. Okay. City council comments, it's an odd month, so we start down at this side. Rita Swope.
Yes, I just want to say that I attended a great deal of events in the last 30 days or so, and we do have some absolutely amazing people that live in Bel Air Beach, and I appreciate each and every one of them. Thank you, that's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Jody Shirley.
I'm good. I think productive meeting. Thank you all for participation.
Thank you. Dave Gaddis.
I would like to echo that. I think 2020 is going to be really awesome for us. We've got a great team. I think the pre-meeting was very productive, and I think in the long run we'll all benefit from it. I did have one question for Lynn. Just on your research, are you the only person that actually works on grants within the city?
Well, I do it, and Kyle, I've been working with Kyle to teach him. He did a good majority of the land and water conservation one, and hazard mitigation, but he's new to it. So yeah, I guess between me and him, that's.
Well, I was just wondering if it would be beneficial for us to actually consider either employing a firm or actually hiring someone, if that's what they do. Well, simply, there's a lot of money out there that we just don't have time to find.
There is something we're gonna be looking at. We're gonna try to hire someone that, it's one of the strategic plan items, to hire a consultant to look and see what we might be eligible for. I did get a quote from a firm, and she gave me the impression she had done a lot of business, but when I asked her for references for city government, she didn't have any. So she was a grant writer for nonprofits, and that's a different animal. So we're going to continue to try to find someone to look into that.
Okay, that's all I've got.
Thanks, Dave. Mark Dean.
Questions for Lynn. Lynn, the cross wires go across 22nd Street and Glacier.
Right.
North to south. Vary all those. Talk about it.
Trying to remember if those get buried. They would if we went to, what you call it, to Gulf Boulevard, but I'm trying to remember if they do get buried.
Wires that go down.
Right.
See, I thought they were going to run the wires under the bridge.
No, they are.
Is that still happening?
Yeah, that, it's taken it to the corner. The issue is, unfortunately, it's a subaqueous bore, very expensive, and very permit length, time to do it. So I'll have another discussion with you. I'm trying to remember if they said they were gonna take it back to Mitch's transformers.
There's only one wire right now, right?
Yeah.
And it's a cable, I think, it's not a power line.
No, there's a power line for
There's
it.
a power line up above.
Yeah. Cable has to go
For
across.
the bridge?
No, at or for the bridge. North to south on Bay Shore.
North to south. And the thing is, they're gonna remove that one pole on the corner of the bridge. So the cable's gonna have to go under, because it'll be sagging.
No, the cable is going, I know that for a fact.
There's the power line above.
Yeah, that's what I need to find out. Because they talked about taking a pole back to one of the poles and pull it. You know, put in a stronger pole. would hold it for a longer distance. So. And one thing I did forget to mention, Jody's underground garage. We got a quote from Duke for $266,000. So Jody and I will be having some more discussions, but we did get the quote.
Jody, if you remember, asked me some questions at the work session. I have a couple of things I want to bring up to you.
Okay. But Lynn, since you brought it up, did you get anything back from Spectrum? And did Duke give you the breakout like you had requested?
I haven't got anything from Spectrum. Duke's engineer gave me a number. I'm waiting for, you know what I'm talking about. Miriam. She was out, she had a medical situation and she was out during the holidays, so I want to talk to her and verify that. But it did drop at about $70,000, the number, and I've got Mark working on a price also for what the conduit in. And the subaqueous, that would stay there. They don't want.
They don't want to do part of the road.
Pardon?
They don't want to do part of the road, in other words, they want to.
They want, the subaqueous would be part of that 194,000. They don't want a separate contractor doing that because of the permitting issues and where it's got to go underwater. So.
And the other question I have for you is the empty lot on Donato, the one that we're going to build a house on. We've got that drainage. Is it smart to go and raise that one up? The drain that goes through the seawall before the house is built?
I need to have an engineer look at that. You know, it's in the location specifically, and I know it's on the right side of the lot, and
On the left, it's on the south side.
and the caps are got it up for sale. Or, yeah. They, to my understanding, they just evidently not decided to build it back. They tore the house down. It's got they were gonna put it up for sale. I think it's got something on it.
Just wondering if that would be smart to do with the townhouse being.
We must have an easement for that?
Right.
I don't know if, you know, we have a lot of pipes between houses. I can't tell you for a fact that,
That's not the information.
Yeah.
There's an easement.
but I can't tell you for a fact there's an easement on all of those pipes.
Just do it at night.
Mr. Bradley, when you get involved.
Nobody heard that, Dave.
We'll come off of Dave's dock.
It's going to be a particular subject.
Don't quote me on that.
That's not for campus.
Promise not to call the police.
Anything else, Marv?
No, that should do it.
All right, Robin?
I'm looking forward to working with everybody. I think it was a good start, this meeting. Thank you again to Fred for spearheading it, and yeah, looking forward to 2020 to be very productive.
Excellent, thank you. Vice Mayor?
The gentleman from 9th Street brought up the issue of coyotes. I talked about it a year ago, and it was like, yeah, we're all animal friendly, I understand that too, and I'm an animal person too, but these guys are at the top of the food chain, and they don't have any natural predators for them, so where does it go? I mean, other cities are starting to wrestle with this too, as it becomes more of an issue, and I'm just wondering, have we touched base with other municipalities to see what they're doing, or?
Indian Docs just had something on that. Yeah, I don't know what, I didn't go to it, but I don't know.
We've, you know, some of the municipalities are doing education because the county's not going to do anything. And we looked into the trapper, and I'm trying to remember what that number was, but it was not a cheap situation. It's like $200 or $300 animal. And we did that probably last year when the vice mayor asked about that.
So how does that cost compare to a lawsuit when somebody's kid gets bitten by one and points to the city and says, you can't do anything?
Well, I don't, you know, Fred would have to answer that, but I think it's wildlife, and I don't know that the city, because the county's not taking any action. They won't even give you a trap to trap them. So Fred, I don't know. Wildlife, bird action, who's liable? Coyote.
Four-legged one with four teeth.
Terry.
The whole legal attack, she shouldn't do anything about it. But ask your question again.
Well, the question is if, you know, I understand the wildlife implications and concerns, the conservatism or conservancy kind of things, but the question is at what point do they become a nuisance and a concern for the residents, where if somebody gets bitten by one, does the city have any or the county or the state have any liability position for, hey, you know, we saw this as an increasing concern and nothing was ever done about it? So get back, thanks.
No, I'm just wondering what you're asking. Are you talking about birds or
Coyotes.
coyotes? Okay. I thought you said birds, that's why I was, okay. I don't know. We'll have to think about that.
Okay, thanks. Item last was the stormwater thing. I'm a big proponent of this, but I guess I'll work with the city manager because we need to build a more compelling case for it and show the numbers and how it works out. The good thing about Chris Rowe, he's got a great track record working with these sorts of issues, and also it's the concern about using this other company to help with the assessment thing is for the validation. It makes his job much easier to sell for the validation from the judge saying, yeah, we've looked at everything and it's good, and he can't foresee any kind of litigation to blow back on us. The good news in all of this is that it's not a tax-related issue, it's a user fee kind of thing, so the timeline doesn't include having to wait for the tax rolls or anything else. We think that once this thing is implemented, we can fast track it and basically get it on the next utility bill.
Yeah, it takes 60 days to put it on the utility bill, or for it to take effect.
Good stuff. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, I just have two items. In coming up with this whole idea of doing this planning board review of our properties, part of what we requested was that they come back to us on a monthly basis, and that hasn't been happening. They did meet last month. I was not able to be there. The vice mayor was. I did listen to the tape twice because I didn't want to miss anything. My impressions were, well, a couple impressions. Number one, thank you, Vice Mayor, for going, and number two, thank you, Lynn Reeves. If it wasn't for those two, not a lot would have gotten done at this meeting. Lynn provided them with pretty much everything we had on our deeds. The problem is, I guess, we don't have everything on our deeds. There's some stuff that's missing, and it's going to take some time, it looks like, to get. And I think Glenn had, I don't know how many people heard it in that meeting because there was a lot of questions on the magnitude of this thing, what to do, but if I can't make this next meeting, I'd love to convey to them what you said about your 80-20 rule, okay? 80% of our revenue could come from 20% of the projects. It does not appear that they are going to, they're already asking for extensions, and we really had to have this stuff by April. We haven't even had a report yet. So what I would like to see, and again, this is me, there's 6 other people here, but if we're going to make this deadline and try and get this stuff for the referendum, if anything, and I don't know that anything will have to be sold, but if anything has to be sold, it has to get on a referendum to the voters. If we're going to do that, we need to try and keep on this schedule. I would love them to focus on the main act, and the main act is this building, what we call the White House building, the storage building, and the marina. You know it, you've already conveyed that to them, but they're talking about, and maybe they're going a little above and beyond the call of duty, they want to go out and do surveys with the neighbors and stuff. I think that's premature, and I think it might just scare a lot of the neighbors, because if you start asking people, hey, you see that beautiful park next to you, what do you think if we put a boat dock there? I mean, they're gonna scream. We don't know as a council if this even makes sense right now, so I think maybe just focus on what's the uses, what alternatives do we have, what can we get for those main properties that we have? We can fill the other properties in as we come to it. As I know, there's several small lots, quarter lots, half lots. You talked about ones that had water outfalls and stuff. We're not gonna be able to do anything with those lots. So yes, I think we should have a complete collection of deeds. That will be something that the city absolutely needs to keep. But I think when we get down to it, you're gonna find like Crossman Park, okay? Crossman Park, there's nothing you can do with it. It's a park. So make it as pretty a park as you want, but you're not putting anything over there. So when you're done, you move on to the next one. But these buildings, these three are the ones to really look at. So it seems like they have limited time. And I'm also going to suggest that once a month may not make it, okay? The Finance Committee's doing it twice a month. They may have to step it up because we really do want to try and stay on that schedule if we can. I mean, we won't die if it's a month later, but if they come in 4 months later, there's no way in the world we're getting on any ballot.
Well, they're scheduled for the 15th. Their first meeting really,
It was organization.
they didn't really, probably, they did what the Finance Committee did, you know, had discussions. I gave them a big packet of stuff, and they were gonna go through that. They did some assignments, certain people were gonna do
Yes.
certain things. So I think going forward, they'll have something to report.
Yeah.
And I know Rudy did talk to me today and say, you know, I don't really have anything to report. And, but hopefully after we get through it, I've given them a spreadsheet with the things that have drainage on them and to try to eliminate some of the, what I call busy work, less focus on.
If possible, I'd like to get a copy of what you distributed in there, and I don't know about everybody else, but it sounds like it had quite a bit of information on it, so, yeah, I know you had a map and what we need. You do too, yeah, so that might be helpful to us.
Yeah, it
But-
had it was a map, it had the deeds. And we did a spreadsheet to be able to tell them, okay, there's a drainage pipe going through this park, so you're not gonna do.
And that'll help us too. I mean, why kill ourselves on a park that has a pipe? There's nothing you're doing on something like that. And I mean, you got a quarter lot. Let's not worry about a quarter lot. We got a marina down the road, and like Glenn said, we got a gigantic parking lot. That's what we want to look at. So that was my impressions that I took away with that. And just, I know there's a lot of experience on that group, but, I do hear things like, well, we did this in the past. Don't worry about what you did in the past. I think Glenn said that too to them. Just anything's open. If there's any option, there's no bad questions, and I think the chairman said that, there's no bad questions, so just ask them, make a proposal. If we, as council, if we don't like it, it won't go any further, but I don't want to scare the neighbors and stuff, because a lot of this stuff's probably never going to happen. We're getting this information. There may be a few things that are going to happen, but, we're not going to develop every park into a marina. That's not what we're going to do. At least that's not what I think we're going to do. I don't know about anybody else, but that's not what I envisioned. So, anyway, if I can't make it, if somebody wouldn't mind conveying that information. So, other than that, I do agree with Dave and with Robin. I think Fred for brokering our truce here and our thing. I feel real energized about 2020. I do think that something Marv said, that there are people, believe it or not, who don't want to see this council succeed. There are some people who work in the background, in the shadows, and it's scary that you have people who don't want you to succeed. So together, we are an incredibly powerful team up here. We have done so much already. They can't beat us if we stay together. So don't let them drive us apart here. We've done a tremendous job so far, and let's keep up that great work. With that, Happy New Year, everybody. Looking forward to working with everyone. And we've got about 25 meetings coming up this month, so hopefully I'll see some people at the meetings. With that, anybody want to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Stand adjourned.